Anyways, everyone, welcome to the weekly All Hands for March 4th, 2026. We are going to use this time to sync up on what we're doing around BFoundation, eliminate blockers, and prioritize our work for the next week. Our aim is to help purpose-driven communities use Web3 tooling to generate revenue and engagement. How to participate? We are a do-ocracy. So if you want to see something happen, do it, and then post on Discord, get some feedback, and we send out the Black Flag token. Well, hopefully weekly. I didn't send it out this week, but I'll go ahead and take a look a little bit later today, Richard, and get that sent out because I saw that you put it up, I think, for the last 2 weeks. So the idea is the more you do, the more ownership you gain over BFoundation. On the like metric side, we have $51,000 in the vault, still even. This isn't including the ETH, which have had on my list to add, but I haven't done it yet. We have $44 in transaction volume. That's down 980 from the week previous. 4 weekly contributors, 37 weekly external engagement, and 206 monthly burn rate. On that weekly external engagement, it was a post. The far let's say the far and away, like most of the stuff came from me saying that raising, like when we were trying to raise funds for BFoundation in 2021 and 2022, it ended up being kind of a waste of time because VCs didn't really care much about what we were trying to do. All they wanted to do was get their cut. A little bit spicy, I would say. I was utilizing, or rather, like piggybacking on the spiciness of Cassie, who talked about VCs and was naming and shaming them. Anyways, all this to say that's where that engagement came from. And yeah, that's it. Any questions on metrics? All right. Move down a little bit here. Just FYI, so next week, we still have the all hands, but then after that, for the next 4 weeks, I'm not going to be around. So feel free to meet, but I'm not going to be here. And so that's March 18th, March 25th, April 1st, and April 8th are canceled. I will be traveling internationally in Japan and hopefully seeking inspiration. We shall see. Hopefully buying some Japanese clothing, actually. That would be really nice too.
Will you be connecting with Liquidiate, Alan Bryce?
So I will not be. I made a promise to my wife that I would not go on any side quests this time. So yeah,
Okay.
it's a little harder to go out because we have the 2 kids and no one to watch them. So yeah, we'll
So
see.
what's
But
your quest?
my quest is, well, we're going for a wedding. Her brother's getting
Okay.
married. And then in Tokyo, like we're going to Tokyo, Nagoya, and Osaka. In Tokyo, we are like already packed up with stuff to do. And then in Nagoya, that's where the wedding's happening. It's all wedding stuff. And then in
Okay.
Osaka, it's kind of like last chance for us to like buy anything we want, see anything we want, like have
Hmm.
those food experiences. So
Yeah.
basically, yeah, it's looking like I'm not going to be seeing any Farcaster or Bankless people.
Well, I would suggest if you want to have a little bit of fun and earn some spending money, that you get some either Americana or Canadiana memorabilia and take it over there, take it to a pawn shop, and just sell it all for as much as they'll give you, because you can fill your suitcase with that stuff, and Japanese people love it.
What
Um,
is Americana and Canadiana?
well, I think I just made up that term, Canadiana, but Americana is like, sort of old country, Kentucky, bluegrass, all that sort of stuff. That is unique. Um, you can find these, like maybe glasses are a really difficult one because you have to ship them in glass breaks, but like patches or jean jackets, anything that's vintage, 50 plus years old, they're really interested in that type of stuff.
I think
Interesting.
when I was in Dominican Republic, Blue Jays T-shirts were the hot Canadiana that was down there.
There you go. That's prime Canadiana right there.
Yeah,
You
I
got
was
it.
thinking of taking a bunch of Blue Jays caps. My wife was like worried because we're going to Osaka and they have a very strong baseball culture there around the Hanshin Tigers. And a friend of ours, last time we were there, took us to a Hanshin Tigers game, gave us some Hanshin Tigers jerseys. So I was like, oh, the least I could do is bring back some Blue Jays memorabilia for them. And my
Mhm.
wife was like, no, they're Tigers fans. You can't give them Blue Jays merchandise. And I was like, oh, is that how that works? I don't know. And apparently, Otani is like Shohei Otani from the Dodgers is pretty huge there too because he's Japanese and he's like the best player in the world right now.
Oh wow, yeah, we had Ichiro in Seattle, so the
Yeah,
Japanese love the Mariners.
Ichiro Suzuki. Yeah, like a lot of West Coast teams. So they're just like, okay, I don't know. The Blue Jays, like the classic Blue Jays logo, is so iconic to me. But you know, I'm from Toronto, so
No, yeah, it stands out. And yeah, a little cross cultural contamination. You might convince one of their kids to become a Blue Jays fan and move to Toronto. Who knows?
yeah, we'll see. Anyways, that's what I'm doing. But I will look into what kind of Canadiana we have around here. I'm not sure if I do know a couple vintage shops near me, but like they are expensive, so it would be a risk for me.
Yeah, do
But we'll see.
yourself just a quick search and see what's hot in Japan. I'm sure there's markets around that, and a lot of it's boots on the ground as well.
I feel
But
like we'll be going thrifting myself. So maybe what I'll do
yeah,
is I'll like get the contact information for the people there and then just ship them a bunch of Canadiana that I know they'll buy in
yeah,
advance.
exactly. Yeah. So there you go. You've just started your. Let's create a DAO around that, shall we?
What would you call it? Iana Dow for Canadiana and Americana.
Yana, yeah. Memorabilia DAO.
Yeah.
Tchotchke DAO.
Legwork Dow because it seems like a lot of legwork.
Seems like a lot of work.
Cool. All
Anyway,
right. So on the project perspective, getting to first launch, no, for B pages, no progress on this. In general, there's a bunch that I want to do. Add the things here, make it so that you can deposit any amount. The votes are looking good, and then I think like um, using all of those kinds of things that we already have, like our bridge and our privy, to make it super easy for anyone to put into there. But for now, it's just kind of on a holding pattern, probably until I get back from Japan. Bcard app, maintenance mode, automation of monthly inactivity emails. How's this going, Tom?
My planned statement distribution for the first did not work. The cron job ran okay, but it bugged into test mode. So we just had some test emails go. I debugged that earlier this week, and then this morning fired off the full statements to everybody. So that should be all there. In activities, so both of them were running daily on staging for the last month. So I've been sort of monitoring and testing and tweaking each of those particular processes. So I'm pretty happy with the way that the monthly statements are set up on production right now. I've reduced the cadence of my testing emails out to monthly on staging rather than daily. So I'll probably be running them manually a little bit for the next couple of weeks, but hopefully it'll be a lot less annoying and in terms of daily volume coming into support.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, so there's stuff coming into support, but I think there's also some coming into my personal email too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yours and mine and some other addresses I left in there as test cases. So yeah, it's
Okay.
possible. Yeah, most of
Did
the
you
other ones were overwritten in the database directly after I had that staging faux pas a couple weeks ago.
did you want feedback or anything on this?
Oh yeah, I'd
Send
love
me
it if
to
you
them,
wanted
but
to sit down, we can jam it out, and maybe you and I could just look through sort of what I've implemented, just so that you have a sort of full awareness of like all the moving parts as well.
cool. Okay, sounds good. Yeah, maybe we can meet either later this week or even today if you have time potentially.
Yeah, we could probably book it later today.
Cool. Out to meet today. Okay, great. And then on anything else? Sorry, Tom, on that side of thing.
Nope, that's the bulk of it. The inactivity fees, I'm not 100% confident on production, so I'm still working a little bit to make sure that that's going to be a-okay and not stress people out or cause grief.
Okay, sounds
It
good.
yeah, the inactivity fee will be running on production. I think it's just set to run once monthly in a test mode, so I can watch it. So it'll be in a couple more days before that one goes.
Cool, sounds good. All right. So on the B Foundation, establish case study and presence, Black Flag Collective, vote for January is up, vote for February is up. Actually, if you go to our snapshot, I think we have two concurrently running ones right now. Yeah, so January and February. The bad part is that so there's only 1 day left on this January one. The bad part is that in the CLI I wrote, it always takes the currently running or the last running event. So I'll probably have to update the CLI to make it easier to do. But other than that, we have those two votes up. Unfortunately, I didn't get any other events for February, which is really unfortunate. Some people said that they ran some for ETH Denver, and I followed up with them, but they just never got back to me, and I needed to get the vote up sooner rather than later so I could disperse the funds before I go on vacation. So yeah, that's what I'll do, and I had to put it up, and it's not great, but at least we got the vote up, and hopefully we get more people who are running events in March, so that we can have multiple people benefiting from that. And I was also looking at removing Tally and using something else to save $30 a month. We're actually not using it for much. I will say the thing that's good about it is the personalization, like the kind of branding on it. I almost wondered if we could do something, if I could do something using like blockchain or some other technology instead, so I could, like whip up something using Cloud Code. Um, but like worst case, we're already paying for Google, and there is a Google Forms, so that is the something that we could do for free essentially, right? So again, $30 a month. It's not a ton, but it will increase our runway. So I was looking at doing that potentially. And we're not using Tally for, I mean, that's not true. We are using Tally in the app too. So I would have to replace the stuff in the app. But anyways, we'll think about it. And then finally, taxes. Federal taxes mailed in. Taxes mailed in. And oh wow, I have not sent anything to the states since all this tariff fiasco went on. But the change to like mail things from Canada to the states is significant. You now have to fill out a customs form, even even though it was just a letter. It was not. Yeah, you had to fill in it took me, let's just say it took me 3 times as long to send than last time, and there was no one in line. I was alone. So yeah, we still have to do the state taxes, and then the Panama yearly report, and we will work on those afterwards. But these are due much later, whereas the federal taxes are due in April. So we still have time for these ones. Anything else you want to report on that, Richard?
No, that sounds like a good summary. Yeah, and I started like pulling together financials and stuff or whatever for the Panama filing.
Cool. All right. So I'm going to skip over the task perspective as I've been doing for the last couple of weeks. I don't think it's like accurately showing what we're trying to do. So I'm just going to leave it for now. What did we ship last week? Winverse taped and shipped the all hands. That's 2K B card. Ooh, at KB card, not quite. I held the all hands and prep for it last week, so that's 2KB card. I put it up to February vote. That's uh, and that is 500 B card. Taxes working session with Richard. That was 1K B card. Prepared 2025 taxes. That's 1K B card. Tax working session. That's 750 B card. Investigated and updated the country issue. That is 250 B card. Entered contributor rewards. That's 250 B card. I mailed the taxes. That's 1K B card. Tom debugged and distributed monthly statements. That's 500 B card. And updates to budget server software. That's 500 B card. Anything else that we ship that's not on here? No? Okay. For our discussion, I wanted to talk about something that Vitalik posted actually. So it's right here. It's very long. So well, I was resisting reading it, but maybe reading it is the best way to get us on the same page. I don't know. Have you guys seen this one?
It's
All
new to
right.
me. I didn't see it.
It's
Nope.
worth a read, anyways. So, over the past year, many people I talked to have expressed worry about two topics: various aspects of the way the world is going, government control and surveillance, wars, corporate power and surveillance, tech and shitification / corpo slop, social media becoming a memetic war zone, AI and how it interplays with all of the above, and the brute reality that Ethereum seems to be absent from meaningfully improving the lives of people subject to these things, even on the dimensions we deeply care about: freedom, privacy, security of digital life, community self organization. It's easy to bond over the first, to commiserate over the fact that beauty and good in the world seems to be receding and darkness advancing, and uncaring, powerful people in high places are making this happen. But ultimately, it is easy to acknowledge problems. The hard thing is actually shining a light forward, coming up with a concrete plan that makes the situation better. The second has been weighing heavily on my mind and on the minds of many of our brightest and most idealistic Ethereans. I personally never felt any upset or fear when political meme coins went on Solana or various zero sum gambling applications go on whatever 250 millisecond blockchain strikes their fancy. But it does weigh on me that although all of the various low grade online mimetic wars, international overreaches of corporate and government power, and other issues of the last few years, Ethereum has been playing a very limited role in making people's lives better. What are the liberating technologies? Starlink is the most obvious one. Locally running open weight LLMs are another. Signal is a third. Community notes is a fourth, tackling the problem from a different angle. One response is to say, stop and laser focus on that. But this is ultimately hollow. Financial freedom and security is critical, but it seems obvious that while adding a perfectly free and open sovereign and debasement proof financial system would fix some things, but it would leave the bulk of our deep worries about the world unaddressed. It's okay for individuals to laser focus on finance, but we need to be part of some greater whole that has things to say about the other problems too. At the same time, Ethereum cannot fix the world. Ethereum is the wrong shaped tool for that. Beyond a certain point, fixing the world implies a form of power projection that is more like a centralized political entity than like a decentralized technology community. So, what can we do? I think that we in the Ethereum should conceptualize ourselves as being part of an ecosystem building sanctuary technologies, free open source technologies that let people live, work, and talk with each other, manage risk and build wealth, and collaborate on shared goals in a way that optimizes for robustness to outside pressures. Our goal is not to remake the world in Ethereum's image, where all finance is disintermediated, all governance happens through DAOs, and everyone gets a blockchain-based UBI delivered straight to their social recovery wallet. That the goal is the opposite. It's detotalization. It's to reduce the stakes of the war in heaven by preventing the winner from having total victory, i.e., total control over other human beings, and preventing the loser from suffering total defeat. To create digital islands of stability in a chaotic era, to enable interdependence that cannot be weaponized. Ethereum's role is to create digital space where different entities can cooperate and interact. Communities channel communications channels enable interaction, but communication channels are not space. They do not let you create a single unique object that canonically represents some social arrangement that changes over time. Money is one important example. Multi-sigs that can change their members, showing persistence exceeding that of any one person or one public key are another. Various market and governance instructions are a third. There are more. I think now is the time to double down with greater clarity. Do not try to be Apple or Google, seeing crypto as a tech sector that enables efficiency or shininess. Instead, build our part of the sanctuary tech ecosystem, the shared digital space with no owner that enables both open finance and much more. More actively build towards full stack ecosystem, both upward to the wallet and application layer, including AI as an interface, and downward to the OS hardware and even physical / biosecurity levels. Ultimately, tech is worthless without users, but look for users, both individual and institutional, for whom sanctuary tech is exactly the thing they need. Optimize payments, DeFi, decentralized social, and other applications precisely for those users and those goals, which centralized tech will not serve. We have many allies, including many outside of crypto. It's time we work together with an open mind and move forward. So I thought that that was an important one. So Vitalik has had a lot of hot takes lately. But basically, I think this idea of like build sanctuary tech is kind of an important idea. I don't. Before we move on, any thoughts on what on that post from Vitalik?
It seems like he's doubling down on the sort of the original values of the cypherpunk era and what we're actually trying to build around here. So yeah, I like it.
It's interesting when he says look for the users that need this particular stack of desirability. It made me think, like, try to run through the list of, like, users that sort of we've been looking at and trying to target over the years. And I think one of the biggest concerns, I guess, that I have about, like, those particular users is, like, the obvious case is criminals. And it's such a hard thing to think of, like, that cohort of users as such. But it's almost like, I think that's the perception, maybe publicly, that the only reason, like, we would want decentralization is because criminality, as
Yeah.
opposed to the reasons of, like, we don't trust the overlords or whatever it is,
Well,
right?
so I think that like one of the things, absolutely, I agree with what you're saying, and I think like one of the things that I was discussing with someone yesterday is like it actually doesn't matter if something is criminal necessarily because the overlords decide what's criminal, right? And so we were having a discussion on whether or not AI is illegal, and I said I like basically this idea that AI is taking all of the work by these artists and reconstructing it into like quote unquote new pieces of work, but is it really fair for them to be making all that money when they're taking the copyrighted works of people for free? So I'm not a fan of copyright law, but I it does bug me that copyright law does not work for small creators. And I think like ultimately you could say that like, yeah, it only works for criminals, but honestly, it feels like more and more people are becoming criminals because of the way that these laws are written to protect corporations rather than individuals. So yes, you can say that the things that we're looking for are for criminals. And I also think that there are more criminals in the world now than we think, and you could be a criminal too.
And maybe we are, and we don't even know it.
Yeah, if you're using AI, you're probably stealing someone's copyrighted work, right? Does that make you a criminal? Maybe. And
So yeah, that raises the question. Being a criminal in one jurisdiction might not mean the same thing in a different jurisdiction. Um, and this is where trusted reputation mechanisms come into play. So if you have an American passport, you go to any country around the world, and in most cases, especially 10 years ago, most countries would trust you. If you were going to um, Syria or Kazakhstan, they might want to look a little bit deeper into where else you've been. They might want to see if you've traveled to, say, if for Kazakhstan, I believe if you travel to Turkish Cyprus, then they don't want to let you in the country. It might be the other way around. It might be Greek Cyprus. They don't recognize the Greek Cyprus in Kazakhstan. So if you've been there, your passport's stamped, they'll basically be like, no, you can't come in the country today. Reapply later and send you off on the next plane. Those are trust mechanisms, right? That's you don't know if that person's a spy or not, but you trust them to come in your country or not. And it's the same thing with a law. Like if you've broken uh, a law, an accord, if you will, then people have a right not to trust you. And there are ways of auditing whether or not you've done this. Not necessarily all the time, but you can set reputation around outputs. ZK based reputations, those types of things that sort of live with you in a way, but don't reveal anything about your identity. So the benefit of blockchain, the real benefit of blockchain is having this validation layer, right? This layer that records all, and you can go back and you can see it all. But the problem is you can go back and see it all. And you can see whose wallet is who sent what to what. You can see who's been rugged. You can see who's doing the rugs. You can trace it back to any terrorist group. And now a lot of these people who thought they were above the law are being found out, and the truth comes out in the end.
yeah,
In terms of the execution layer, that's where you kind of have to privatize, right? You don't want to show people what you're working on because you don't want to be front run. And you don't want to show people the tactics that you're using because then they'll be able to employ those tactics as well. You set up your logic in your way. So how do you audit that? That's the real question, right? Like, how do you assure that an agent or a person or a sovereign entity is going to execute and transact in a way that is legitimate and not breaking any accords, not breaking any laws? So I think in terms of our sovereignty, I think it's extremely important for individuals to have their sovereignty. And if they tie themselves to a country, that's maybe their own choice. I don't know how. Can you be born unto a country? I don't know how that works exactly. But it seems like a lot of that stuff is starting to be undone with the digital nation states that Balaji and crew are designing. So yeah, really interesting topic, and that's just what I've been thinking about lately on it.
Yeah, I think like that idea that Tom was going, like that idea that it works mainly for criminals. Like I think it's like you're right that that kind of validation layer, that identity layer has something to do with it. And I also think that there are just people who, like, aside from criminals, like all those people who were in bank lists, the people who got debanked, the people who didn't do what a regime wanted. The idea that, like, okay, there are tons of like law-abiding citizens in Japan who have very strict capital controls, so they can't. Sorry, not Japan. I meant China. They have very strict capital controls, so they can't move their wealth even if they wanted to. And you could say that these people are criminals, but I also think that like there are also lots of people there who maybe they just want to have a different life, right? And it's basically putting more freedom into the hands of individuals. So like anyone who's been debanked, maybe they're a criminal by some means, but I also think that there's more to it than that. There's more people than that. There's more audience than that who might be interested
Mhm.
in this sanctuary setting. And I also think that it's important to note that that audience is relatively small when you're looking at the North American, when you're looking at like the North American audience, right? Like most people in North America have a bank account. Most people are okay, relatively okay with the status quo. Now, that number is growing less and less as time goes on, but I think that one of the reasons why we haven't seen more of this sanctuary tech being built is because the space has been dominated by VCs in the past, and that audience of people who are debanked or people who need sanctuary technologies or something is not really an audience that is VC scale, at least not yet. And so we haven't seen those technologies being built because of the way that capital is flowing into the industry as well.
Do you think it's almost like an institutional framing, like against us, like in the sense that, like, if you desire privacy or whatever, then you're more likely to be a criminal? It feels like, at least if not explicitly, that's sort of implicitly what people think um, about the industry, external perception. At least what I see.
I do think that I mean, I think that's more, rather than an industry framing, I think it's more of a political framing, if that makes sense, right? Like, there's always, every time everyone wants to strip away your privacy, they're like, oh, it's because of child porn, right? Like, they say this all the time. It's for money launderers and child porn. Anytime they try to take your privacy rights away, they always go to those two things. And so if you want privacy, they're not outright saying it, but they're implying that you are a criminal for one of these two reasons. Either you want to launder money, or you want to access illegal pornography or something like that. And I think that that's a political framing that they use. And then for industry framing, I think like that is almost downstream of that political framing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that sounds right to me. It feels like, I don't know. It's like a soft attack. It's like
Yeah.
just like vibes perception or whatever. Yeah, it's like crypto has no heroes, maybe, but a lot of
Yes.
villains. right? Like in terms of public perception. Like I consider Vitalik, he's pretty heroic. But I mean, not most people. Most people don't think that.
Yeah, yeah, I agree, right? Like most people don't know who Vitalik is, but I agree that there's far more villains in crypto than there are heroes. There's very few people you can look up to and be like, oh, this is a person who really stands for things. Um,
To be honest, I think that says more about humanity than it does about crypto.
yeah,
Right?
say more.
The tools are there, and people use them for their needs. And if somebody needs a nefarious tool, that's probably the best way to do it, right? So yeah, it's a shame that it often comes back to criminality, and we've been stuck in this scam silo ever since FTX. Really, I mean, Jesus, you saw Tom Brady out there advertising for FTX and all these A-list celebrities, and that just it entirely eroded all of the all of the trust that people had in those types of systems. And the funny thing is, FTX was not a problem with the blockchain. FTX was a centralized scam. It's essentially the same thing the banks do, where they take all your money and they spunk it all across all the ecosystems in the hope that something's going to pay off and hope that they don't get caught with their pants down. Well, lo and behold, he got caught with his pants down. I would say that GameStop, that whole fiasco, they did get caught with their pants down, but they got saved and they're still paying for it to this day. Um, the kick the can analogy is really fitting with GameStop because they're still like all the market manipulation that we see today is all part of them trying to cover up the trail of all these naked shorts that they had across the entire stock market. So I don't know, the tools that exist um, are very powerful, and we do need regulation of sorts. But then even the regulation, you have to look at that and think, okay, well, who's setting themselves up for the win here?
Yeah.
Because lobbyists have their own interests at heart.
Yeah, I think that that's the real important part about sanctuary tech is like, okay, um, for all we know, all the regulation is going to outlaw this stuff, even though it is like useful to individuals and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And it's true that there are lots of like the regulations exist because they want to protect consumers, and yet those regulations did not protect consumers from FTX, right? They did not protect consumers
Mhm.
from like predatory crypto people, right? And so it's just like, what use are those regulations if they don't protect individuals and they do protect large corporations? What is the point of them, right? And so it's like at this point, why build anything that attaches to TradFi if you can just get kind of regulated out of existence? More interestingly, can you build something that is completely separate and parallel and allows for a sanctuary when that time comes, right? Like if you need a sanctuary, it's here. It's your job to figure out how to get there. But this is like a parallel system that works if you need it, if you need to retreat, right?
Mhm.
So this is an idea that we've been kind of discussing here over the last couple of months. This idea that, and it's something I discussed with Richard yesterday, even like, oh, maybe we shouldn't even have a legal entity. Maybe we should be completely online and stop doing that. And that was just like a very brief discussion, right? Like it's not something that it was more of a what if than anything, but this idea that like it's the very things like this connection to TradFi actually watered down our abilities for B cards so much that it ended up not being useful. What if we could turn that on its head by making something extremely useful to a smaller set of people, but it wasn't connected to TradFi as a result. We would be able to serve far fewer people, but the people we did serve, when shit hits the fan, they have a sanctuary.
Yeah, I was just gonna jump in and say, like, one thing that I've been kind of thinking about for a while is, like, there's been this call for a long time for, like, oh, we need clear, regulatory clarity, blah blah blah, with crypto and stuff. And you kind of see, like, the way that it's like stuff is happening, and it's coming together now. But it looks like it's, heading towards like more in the direction of, like, regulatory capture. And, just like based, and I don't really, I haven't been watching this that closely, but the issue about paying yield on stable coins, for example, and
Yeah.
like how the
Yep.
banks don't want that, and they're pushing the regulations in a way that would kind of define that. And I'm thinking, like, well, maybe things would have been better off if nobody would have ever, like, mentioned anything about regulation, and you just keep doing stuff as you're doing it, and work under the radar. Because it just seems like, when you're talking about regulation, it generally goes to in the direction of regulatory capture by the, entities that have the most power.
Exactly. Exactly. It's not like the same thing with copyright law is the same thing as this thing. It's not helping an individual. It is entrenching industries and preventing competition, right? And so I think that that's like if you look at that stablecoin legislation, it's exactly that. Like they keep saying like, oh, um, they are basically worried that consumers would rather get between 3 and 5% on their money versus the 0 to 2% that banks offer, right? Banks don't even offer interest that much anymore. Some neobanks are offering it, but that's like their kind of competitive edge. So they are basically saying we don't want that competition because then we would be forced to give away some of our profits. We would not be as profitable, right? But what is that profit really doing for society? It's enriching the top 1%, and it is at the cost of the bottom 99%. It's the same with copyright law, right? Like, it's impossible for an individual to actually protect their own works. In fact, there are people who get demonetized on social media, on YouTube, because someone does a copyright strike on their own owned stuff, right? And so these people are getting demonetized, but meanwhile, Disney can continue to use the same characters 120 years later because they've lobbied for it. So it's protecting, again, that entrenched industry rather than doing its stated aim of increasing competition or increasing innovation. That's what IP law is supposed to be about, is increase innovation. And it's changed. It's turned into a regulatory capture. And so it's almost just like when those things stop serving you, you should probably just stop serving them, right? Like we shouldn't use those things. And that's why like a complete separation is like a completely parallel system is interesting to me at least.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point when you bring IP into it as well. Um, Parallel systems, really interesting topic. As far as the legal entities go, I mean, eh, the problem there is that if you do want to operate in the pre-existing structures, you need to comply with with their imposed standards, I guess would be the best way to put it, laws, etc. And the problem you have there is if you don't, you end up in jail like the Romans. And if you do build something, then on the flip side, if you do build something that saves humanity in an emergency, then you're the savior. So where's the that you can't just go into this assuming you're going to save humanity with the mission of creating a parallel structure. Um, how much do you have to give? How much do you have to comply with the pre-existing structures in order to actually continue to operate.
Yeah, I think that I do think like when I was talking about like not having a legal entity, I think it's important that we kind of do have a legal entity, at least in Panama, because it
Mhm.
creates some sort of like a liability buffer, right? And I think it is also completely possible to create something, drop it, and be like, now I can't do anything else, right? Like that's uh, at the end of the day, that code is free speech, right? Like that is I mean in the United States versus the like any given let's say any given country it might be different, but for me I think like that idea that like hey I can publish something and people can use it like in a lot of ways like that's free speech the way Americans know it. Any kind of like contravention of that is really just like lawyering more than anything.
So that just comes down to just releasing the code, I guess, right? Just make it all open source and and build in that way, because otherwise you don't really have the legal protections. Um, so yeah, it's interesting. I wonder what sort of protections Falaji's nation states are building at the minute. Do they have these parallel structures that are starting to form in there?
I have a friend who's working out of one of their network states and also one who just came back from there. um he just came back from the Singapore like the network state school, whatever it's called. And so basically he says like yeah, like Balaji's network state is owning land and that kind of stuff, but what he has in Singapore is like not that, right? Like it's a completely um like working with the local government in Singapore. It is really focused on exploring frontier tech like AI and blockchain. And he doesn't, at least the people who were there, they didn't see much difference from it versus like an incubator that you might go to in California or London or something like that. They were like, it feels like an incubator. Like there's the kind of people that they attract are these people who want to do something different, but he doesn't see any difference yet, and he wasn't aware of any plan to make it different, which he's just someone who's attending, so of course he's not privy to those planning meetings. But yeah, so all this to say that like I do like the idea of a network state, but I don't think the idea of a network state that owns land is what interests me. The idea of a network state that like lives above the existing kind of land-based states, like a state of ideas, that's what's really interesting to me potentially. And I don't think that that's what they're going with the whole Balaji network state. The downside is there are no protections from things like, oh, if the US government wants you and you live in the US, they can go get you because physically you're located there. But the idea that if it was a private um, if it was like a private communication channel, sanctuary technology that allows you to do things more privately, then you could live in that network state while living in the real world simultaneously.
Well, unfortunately, people building these types of technologies in the UK are actually not welcome. They have literally stated that they don't want people working on private communications and cryptographically secure uh, communications methods, period.
Yeah,
And I think, I'm involved in a privacy project, but it's not necessarily cryptographic communications in that sense. It's more of a private inference. So we're helping with GDPR compliant data, and I see that as a plus. Not like if we're not doing it for some nefarious reasons, but again, it's going to be an open source network, and eventually it might be used for nefarious ways that we didn't even intend. um, so yeah, it's crazy how these, I'm sure the Tornado Cash developers didn't wake up and say, "Oh, we're going to create this tool to help people steal money." No, they were like, we need privacy. Let's create a mixer. This is cool. Look what we can do with a smart contract. And that was pretty simple. Let's publish it, and now it's free for everybody to use. And then
Mhm.
all of a sudden, you're persona non grata. So yeah, I don't know, but it's definitely worth having the discussions. It'd be interesting to see more of this talk at the Balaji events.
Yeah, do you go to these Balaji events?
No, I was invited to Prospero, and I just didn't have the time or the money to get out there. But it'd be fun, worth checking out.
Yep. Yeah, so like when you think of like sanctuary tech, what comes to mind for you guys?
Well, Tornado Cash first,
Yeah,
blockchain.
really? Okay, that's interesting.
Saying, I mean, yeah, it's something that's open source, like not necessarily Tornado Cash specifically, but that type of open source tech that exists and can't be shut down. So permissionlessness.
Yes, I agree that it can't be shut down is part of it. There's no
Yeah, I think it's
centralized gatekeeper. Sorry, go ahead, Tom.
well, it's okay. I was just gonna say, I think it's anything that replaces a service one would consider mandatory with a service that one considers optional. So, like the idea of a parallel financial system that exists alongside the mainstream financial system is kind of the basic idea there. That we all kind of are forced to use particular things based on where we live, but providing people options to be able to choose different ways to do things, I think, is always increasing the sanctuariness of that tech.
Yep. Yeah, have options is really important. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
like you,
that's a really good way to put it. Replacing something that people see as mandatory with something that's optional. Um, I think that's is that how you put it?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it's
an
like
interesting one.
giving people an alternate road to take, right? Like it feels like we got a major highway here in Canada, the 401, that runs basically across all of Ontario and Quebec, and it becomes the Trans Canada Highway eventually. But it's the major road, and everybody uses it all of the time. It makes me think that we've forgotten about the alternate routes that exist to get to our destination. This comes up for me during the winter a lot because going to ski resorts and going a little bit off the beaten path, I found that if you're taking the highway, you're pretty much guaranteed to whatever go get there within a range of time frames. But because of traffic, it can be pretty broad, those time frames. And because the alternate routes are so lightly used these days, you can often get where you want to go faster on the alternate routes than the express routes that were built specifically to get you there. And I like to think about technology routes that provide us different paths or shorter paths, potentially shorter paths that can get us to a similar or same destination, as being sanctuary enabling.
yeah, building on that metaphor. I know some of those routes you're talking about, Tom, and they're just like kind of like north of that massive highway, and they're so much more pleasing to be on. They're like little two-lane roads, back and forth. There's more mountains, there's more trees, there's more like little cities or villages that you can stop in. So it is, technically, let's say a longer way. It may or may not be shorter depending on traffic, but it's also like it has other beneficial qualities that aren't necessarily based around efficiency and saving money and time, that are still beneficial to people. And sometimes we forget that.
Yeah, sometimes we forget that is key. Like we don't think about the alternate route sometimes. It's just like this is the default. This is the way that it's done, and I'm kind of stuck in this route, and it's only when you experience like the pain points of whatever sort of mechanism that you're trying to use. So I did last week before last a trip to Montreal, road trip from near Toronto. So it was about 6.5 hours each way, and it was pretty much like deadly highway driving, like slush and sleet and snow and everything like that. And it made me think a lot about like the advent of technology like self-driving cars, like when people have the option to flip on a switch to put a robot in control or whatever. That's like that's a sanctuary technology as well. That's something that will give people who have stress when driving a lot of relief, I think. So something like that as well.
Yeah, I think like well, so one of the things I thought when I heard sanctuary tech is like this idea of like life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which is it came from, I mean, it's in the U.S. Constitution or Declaration of Independence rather, and it's also something that Locke said, who's a famous British philosopher. So this
John
idea
Locke.
is like, yeah, John Locke, yeah, and so like this idea that you have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And sometimes that right can be taken away by these centralized entities, but not if you have options, not if you have the ability to have multiple, like your sorry, like for instance, banking is the easiest one. It's possible for the government to completely block your access to all bank accounts. It is not possible for the government to block your access to all of your crypto wallets. So I think that there's something there that if right now we are prevented from pursuing our happiness, and I think that a sanctuary technology might allow us to um, always be able to pursue our happiness.
Quickly, we need to be really careful of false sanctuaries as well, because when you look at something like USDC, that can actually be sanctioned. And you think not your keys, not your crypto. I've got these tokens in my account. Well, they can basically stop those tokens from being, I don't know. I've heard how they do it. I think it has something to do with like putting the tokens on a blacklist and they're not able to be used somehow. But that is essentially a CBDC, right? So how is this false sanctuary giving crypto the OG crypto community hope that we're going to have regulations now, but the regulations are going to steer directly to the very thing that we're trying to avoid, which is we need sovereign
Oh,
control over these sanctuary technologies.
oh, you
Sorry,
okay?
sorry. Yeah, no, I'm okay. I just spilled coffee.
Stub your toe.
I
Uh-oh.
spilled
Uh,
coffee. So uh,
so yeah, false sanctuaries. I think we just need to be careful of those.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Anyways, we are at time, so just wanted to say thanks everyone for being here. I do think this idea of sanctuary tech really dovetails nicely with what we're trying to do. I do think that that idea of like that easy to use crypto storefront and smart contract, which allows anyone to quickly and easily accept money for a business, run a business online, is something that could be considered a sanctuary tech as well. So I think it's like it's interesting to think about, and if you do get an idea, or if you do get a, let's say, inspiration or time just to think about it, I encourage you to do so because it's exactly what we're doing here. So I appreciate you all for being here. Thank you very much. And yeah, I'll see you guys next week.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thanks.
everybody. Thank you, Links.
See
bye.
ya.
See you later.
Have a great one.
Bye.